Welcome to the Magnificast, a podcast about Christianity and leftist politics. I'm your co-host, Dean Detloff.
And my other co-host, Matt Bernico.
Been a busy time over here in the old Magnificast offices in our big tower on top of the church, on top of the Bone Church. This is a new piece of the building that I've just invented. It goes up so many stories. It's kind of the executive suite up here in the Magnificast office. And Matt and I are finishing up the book. It's due in just a few days, and boy, does it feel that way. And it has absorbed all of the time that we possibly have, all of our free time, but in a good way, in a way that I think is going to pay off. And so we thought maybe this time around, we'll go ahead and treat everybody to another edition of The Lock-In. For people who don't know, The Lock-In is an ongoing series of, I don't know what you could say, an episode format where we talk about some goofy stuff on the internet, on Reddit, and then we talk about some current events, and there's a whole fiction and lore to it, but you don't have to know any of that. In fact, it's probably better if you don't. But why don't we kick this one off, Matt, by just doing a little check-in here. What's going on over there across the pond, as they say?
They do say that. That's exactly what they're always saying. Let's see. I went camping in the Highlands this past weekend with my son. That was really fun. A great time getting eaten by bugs, camping, looking at waterfalls and mountains and stuff. Scotland, I gotta tell you guys, it's a great place. One of the best countries. One of the best countries out there. You gotta have a gander over here if you ever get the chance. It is worth it. A beautiful place. Hard to believe it's real. Like Lord of the Rings, but it exists in real life. Crazy. Besides that, been working on the fine-tuning of the citations in the book, and I'm done. I'm checking out. I'm punching the clock. Like, next year this book will come out, and I will turn into a huge Christian grifter where I'm going to be doing sort of the circuit, speaking at people's churches, doing book signings, of course, all of it. And so will you, Dean. You have to, I think. It's mandatory. But for now, I feel like I'm done. I think it's over for me. I'm ready to hit send on this big book and just let somebody else kind of work through it for a little bit, and then take a little break until I feel better about it.
I respect that, and I think I'm getting pretty close to that situation myself. Although my wife is not here in my apartment, she's gone. She's been gone for a week. She's going to be gone for another week. And I've been just slowly mutating into, I don't know, some shell of a person who can only read books. And I guess that's how I spend my free time. And so probably I'll just continue picking at it until someone finally locks me out of it entirely and says you're not allowed to look at it anymore. And that will be doing me such a huge favor. But until then, I'll probably just continue to retreat into myself, comforted only by the ability to edit the kind of never-ending editable manuscript.
Someday when this book is released, you can still go around everyone's house and mark up their pages just with your last minute edits.
I'm gonna have to, because I guarantee as soon as it comes out, I'm gonna start reading it and being like, no, shouldn't have said that. Should have said that differently. Should have cited somebody else. Just one more paragraph, one more citation, one more point. Then it'll be perfect. That's how I'm gonna feel about it forever.
Yeah. The trick is, I think, that once it's out there, you don't ever read it again. I think that you can't. I think that you have to put it in a big chest and lock the chest and then walk away.
Yeah, I think you're right. And when people inevitably come for us and say, degrowth is wrong, your book is bad, we'll just say, I don't know. I've never read it. Couldn't tell you.
I wrote it, but I didn't read it. So who can say? Who's to say if it's bad or good? Not me.
Ask
someone who's read it.
Let's exit this big office at the top of our surreally tall church building and
Avengers Tower made solely out of bones of the saints.
That's right. Yeah, a horrible kind of 28 years later situation. And we'll go ahead and get down to the basement where the real work begins, the spooky stuff. Matt, I've got a few questions. You know, oftentimes Matt and I will go through Reddit and we'll kind of like softly compare without giving away the questions that we have, but this time around we didn't have time to do that. So I guess we'll discover if our dowsing rods for absurdities have kind of led us to the same horrible occult treasures. but I've got one I can start with anyway, and we'll see where we go. Okay, this one is from 5 hours ago, and it is, in Christianity, what was Jesus's physique/body type?
Okay. This is not one of my questions for you, so that's cool.
Great. There's no body text. That's it. What do you think was Jesus's physique/body type in Christianity?
Okay, I think, let's see. This is my approach to the question. Let me explain my methodology first, and then I'll explain what I think that gives me. Sort of a PhD way to answer a question. Jesus was a guy living out there, from Galilee. We all know about him. I gotta imagine that he's probably on the Mediterranean diet of some variety. Maybe not exactly that, but he's not eating figs, because we know how Jesus feels about figs.
Oh yeah, hates
but olives, olive oil, a little bit of wine, fish, and loaves. That's probably about it, right?
I mean, what else do you need?
I don't know. Fish. Okay. Fish has a lot of protein in it, just based on the things that I know. So as long as Jesus is fish maxing in his diet, he's probably physically speaking, he's probably pretty shredded on that fish diet. That's my guess. I don't know, Dean. What do you have a particular thought about this?
Well, I mean, in all the pictures that I see, he has huge abs that, for a certain period of painters, also looked a bit phallic. He seemed to have long hair. Hard to say. These are all museum descriptions, of course, but there are many great kind of questions here among the Redditors. And I thought maybe I'll read a few of those, and then maybe I'll share what I think Jesus might be like. The best part is the original poster does have a comment in here that just says, "Why all the downvotes?" And I think that kind of gives you a sense of how Christians feel about this question. They don't want to know. It's too edgy to figure out Jesus's physique and body type. Lots of people say there's no way of knowing, but and someone does also say that he was also on the Mediterranean diet. So
okay,
no
all right, I'm in good company.
You're converging.
Somebody else on Reddit. I guess that's good company.
Some company anyway. But here's my favorite comment. If you take the Shroud of Turin to be legitimate, which there's far more reason to do than you'd think, then that should give you an idea of Jesus's body proportions, although that would be post-crucifixion, so not perfectly. So kind of like look up the Shroud of Turin and then think this, but before he got crucified. And there you have a pretty good idea of Jesus's physical description, I guess.
I'll think about that a little bit. This is something I don't know anything about, so it's great that I'm going to say it on a podcast. I think that tracks. I remember once learning that people generally were not as tall in Bible times, and that perhaps I hesitate to say that Jesus is a short king, because of course he's the King of Kings, but
short king of all kings.
Right. So I mean, I would say on average shorter than most people that exist now is kind of how I'm framing this, because I don't know how tall he was, and I don't know how tall most people were then. So it's like, Jesus could be shorter than people are now, but he could have been taller than people were then.
Right.
So I'm just trying to say that like he was probably shorter than us, but maybe, still kind of tall. Comparatively speaking, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I guess when we think back to that period of time, there's all kinds of differences. I mean, less sunscreen on the one hand, so probably burnt to a crisp. But on the other hand, the sun is not as strong, no greenhouse gas emissions, etc. So maybe not so bad.
Right, no microplastics in that guy.
Microplastics, exactly right. Strangely responsible for many microplastics. He should have explicitly told us not to do that. That would have been a big help, but he didn't. How could he? I like to think that the Bible says that he's a carpenter, so I guess that's why people think that he might be ripped. I want to say maybe, though, there's many ways to be a carpenter. And maybe he's really good at kind of the ornamentation. So maybe he has like pretty nimble hands, but he's sort of like a bit of a dad bod type of guy. And then of course he did just sort of wander around for a few years. So that like by the third year, probably his calves wouldn't be so bad, but all that kind of carpenter upper body strength, that's got to be atrophied by then. So I like to think he's just like me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I like to think of that too. I like to think that Jesus is also just like you. Um, let me throw this wrench in the mix here too. Once I had a Bible professor at university who said that the word that we usually translate to be carpenter actually means stonemason. So if that's the case, then I think that we can draw some even bigger conclusions about Jesus' sort of upper body strength if this dude is carrying rocks around all day, you know? I think that maybe some bigger muscles.
Like, what if he's like the chiseler and his dad, Joseph, he's the carrier? That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe he's a stonemason, but he's kind of like, he does the, I don't know, the more beautiful, intricate, less physically demanding stuff. Like me.
So Joseph, right, like you. So Joseph is the guy who's really ripped, though. It's kind of what we're getting
he's gigantic. And he's 10 feet tall, and his dad is, he can see over everybody, and he could pick up 30 people. I mean, Joseph's out of control, but Jesus, he's regular like me. Also like my dad, Joseph.
Great. Okay. This is good all around. Sorry, I'm just kind of really stuck on how tall Jesus is. And so we don't know for sure. The Shroud of Turin can get us only so far, I suppose. But we do know that he was taller than Zacchaeus. A wee little man was he. So, that tells us a little something more to sort of triangulate the physique of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior.
Right. So Zacchaeus, 1 foot tall. Jesus, 3 feet tall.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. I'm done with this question. I don't... Oh, no, you still have more. Okay, no, keep going.
Well, I just have one question. How many kind of restaurant booster seats is Jesus going to need at the very end when he puts everybody in two sides, the sheep and the goats?
So here's the thing. This is going to sort of blur the lines between this question and another one that we do talk about a lot. So on this podcast, we have a deep and rich lore about what happens to our human bodies when we go to heaven. And we don't have sort of what we've surmised from deep scriptural theology. From theology. Sorry. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that, is that our bodies are not sort of human-shaped bodies. They're perfectly spherical, round orbs. And I think that is in heaven, so Jesus can kind of do his thing. He can separate the sheep from the goats, but he's separating the spheres from the spheres here, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And however tall the spheres are, okay, so if we can kind of calculate the height of a sphere in heaven, we'll know that Jesus is probably just a little bit taller than those spheres, right? Because there's no way that Jesus would make the spheres bigger than himself.
True. Well, I don't know. Could be a good lesson there. Like, you get there, you get to the big concert hall where Jesus is going to do this somewhere. And you're just kind of like milling around, and you're like, when's he going to get on stage? When's he going to get up there? When's he going to divide us up? And you're probably like looking for the biggest ball around. And then actually it's just the littlest guy. And that's like one final teaching where Jesus is like, yeah, the last will be first. The big will be small. The tall will be short. Okay.
Yeah, that does seem like what could happen. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I look forward to rolling around up there. All right, what do you got for me, Matt?
Well, now that we're talking about heaven, I guess I should ask a heaven-adjacent question.
Sure.
This one, okay, this is not quite a question. It's not quite a question, but it's also not a question. This is labeled on Reddit as a blog, which is dangerous territory. And it was submitted 4 hours ago, and it says, different jobs we will have in heaven.
Right.
I'm not going to read the whole blog because it's too long for anyone to care. But I'll read a little bit here so you can get an idea of what's going on. Your job description for eternity is already written. It's less about harps and more about thrones. I used to be quietly terrified of heaven. The version I got as a kid sounded like eternal boredom, floating on a cloud, wearing a white robe, maybe strumming a harp. It felt like a retirement home in the sky. A long, slow, boring nap. You can tell the person who is writing this is a person who is who has not yet turned 30, because that sounds awesome. I would love to just take a big sleep.
Okay, no joke. I went to a retirement home recently to visit a friend there, and I gotta tell you, I get the appeal. That place rocks. That sounds awesome.
Let me move in. Okay. So, anyways, they say this. Anyways, I was wrong to think these things about heaven. It's not a retirement; it's a promotion. The job isn't just about singing, though there's a lot of that. Okay, fine. It's about being before the throne and serving God day and night. Revelation 7:15. Not because you have to punch a clock, but because you finally get to do the one thing you were made for without anything getting in the way. It's pure purpose. But then it gets weirder and wilder. We're told we will reign with him, 2 Timothy 2:12. We're given authority to judge, Revelation 24. Think about that. Not just judge situations, but to participate in judging the world, even angels. That isn't passive, it's active. It's a kingdom, and we're not just subjects. We're made to be kings and priests, Revelation 5:10. And then they go on to say one more thing, and then this will be the last bit. The work that is waiting for us is the opposite of the worst job that you've ever had. It's building houses and actually living in them, planting vineyards and eating the fruit yourself. It's the work of your hands, the work of creation with all the frustration and the curse stripped away. It's getting back to the garden. Like, okay, hang on. I'm bracketing the funniness of this question for 1 second. If you're dreaming of like what you're made for, the best type of work you can imagine with all of the other bad stuff stripped away, and it's like you're building a house and you get to live in it, you get to plant food and you get to eat it. Like, bud, that's socialism. That's what you're after. I'm so sorry. Like, you're right that it does suck that we can't do that, but I gotta tell you about a really cool guy who thought that we could, and it was a guy named Karl Marx. Okay, anyways, blah blah blah. In heaven, we all get to be rulers, judges, priests, and workers. Isn't that exciting? So, Dean, what do you think about this take about the jobs we'll have in heaven? Do you think there are any other jobs in heaven, or do you think that is about it?
I'm just thinking of getting to heaven and immediately seeing Ty Pennington being like, "Move that truck, you've made it. That's your big house." It's a great question. I think I think this person has, it sounds like, it all figured out, and there are so many scriptural references it's pretty hard, seems like kind of unassailable to suggest anything other. But I like to think our jobs will be a little more interesting than building your house and then living in it, or maybe like getting up in the morning, judging some angels, going back to bed at night. I feel like, I don't know, in heaven, it's going to be, as you said, a kind of socialist situation. I always think of that line from Marx in the German ideology. You can wake up, you can go fishing, you can, I forget what he says. You can go fishing, you can go do something else, whatever, without becoming a fisherman or some other kind of person. And I feel like it's going to be that. You get to heaven and you just kind of like do whatever you want. And everybody's fine. You don't have to worry about anything. And it's all the things that the Republicans tell you you can never get. And I think that sounds pretty good to me. Just a heaven of basically totally rotating, arbitrary work that you can do whenever you want. However long you want. And you can also just quit whenever you want.
That's nice. I think I'd get hired on for those jobs in heaven, and I would quit immediately because I do want to just take a nap on the cloud. I don't want to judge or rule anybody. Oh my God, that sounds awful. Just let me play the harp, guys. With my perfectly spherical heavenly body. I don't want to have to get into the work of like listening to people litigate their circumstances. Just let me play the harp.
Yeah. We're all balls, so what is there to judge?
That's great. That's good. That's a good point. Okay. Those are the jobs we'll have in heaven. Can't wait.
All right. Okay. I have one that I'm not going to make you answer, but do just want to flag. This is a question people are asking. Why is premarital traveling frowned upon? So I just feel like that's the state of things right now in evangelicalism. Unfortunate.
That's so interesting. I never would have guessed that would be a
problem. But here's what I do want to ask you, and I feel like this might be a situation where we've got the same one, but maybe not. This is the candidate. It is how to avoid pagan witchcraft tendencies.
Oh.
Okay, you don't have this one. That's great.
No, I don't. No.
here is the body of the text. For context, I grew up in a very pagan, spiritualist, witchcrafty home. I had crystals gifted to me, books of practical magic, tarot cards, etc. This is all before I turned to Christ. My family still follows the same beliefs, and I'm the only Christian. Every now and again, I find myself catching myself thinking of going back to old habits when things happen. What can I do to try to avoid witchcraft that is so constantly in my life? Lots of other stuff there. Then they say, I've given away all my crystals, witchcraft themed things, and don't know how else I can try to get over the tendencies that I have to slip back into old habits. So I guess, Matt, how does this person avoid pagan witchcraft tendencies?
Okay, first of all, if you're just giving away crystals, sign me up. Send a few my way. Like, if you're just giving them to people, I'll take a crystal or two. I don't know. It couldn't hurt. I imagine they're expensive, so just hand them over to me and I'll sell them on eBay for you. Just kidding. I won't do that. I'll keep your very special magic crystals. Here's a controversial take. This is not something that every Christian podcast is going to tell you, but I think that you could probably just lean into it, honestly.
Whoa.
I know. There've been plenty of people who've been Christians and witches in history, and why not just be one more of that? I think that's probably fine.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Right. This actually, It reminds me a lot of a situation. I've probably talked about this on the show before, but a friend of mine in middle school, he was an evangelical and felt especially convicted about listening to Weird Al Yankovic. And he was like, what am I going to do with all my Weird Al CDs? And I said, I'll take them, because I did not feel convicted at all about Weird Al CDs. So I did inherit his Weird Al collection, and I enjoyed them quite a lot. And later in life, in I guess probably high school, not that later at all, he decided that in fact he didn't need to worry about it, and Weird Al was awesome. So I gave him his Weird Al CDs back. And I think that's what this person needs in their life. They need somebody who can kind of just like hold on to all that stuff until they grow out of it, and then they can be like, "Don't worry, buddy. Here's those crystals."
I think that's such a nice thing to do for a friend, is if you were to take the crystals and just hold on to them, put them in your, in your attic for a little bit, and then when the time is right, you can give them back. Yeah, that's cool, man. I think that's a great idea. If anyone has any sort of precious jewels or gems that I'm close to and you want to send me to them in a box, that's fine. I'll hold on to those gems for you. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll like make a nest out of them. Maybe I'll sleep on top of them. I mean, if you have any gold, you can send it my way. I just want to make it clear that I'll just hold on to all the stuff for you, and I'm not a giant dragon hoarding wealth.
And if you have any Weird Al Yankovic CDs that are just kind of making you feel a little bit sinful, you can just send those right to me, and that'll be fine. I'll hold on to those too.
Sounds good. Cool. Well, maybe on that note of music and feeling bad, here's a question that was asked 42 minutes ago, the Christianity subreddit, and it goes a little something like this. All right, people, big old question about Christian music. Is Christian rock fine to listen to? I listen to stuff like Amberlin, Switchfoot, etc. And I'm terrified of running into a Christian with heavier rock playing, as Amberlin and 77s play some heavy and loud music. So, Dean, what do you think about this? Is it okay to listen to Christian rock music? And is there anything out there that's heavier than Amberlin? I'm trying to think
you're
of
saying
something.
You're saying this is 5 hours ago and not 20 years ago?
It's 42 minutes ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. I saw this and I was like kind of astounded that anyone listens to Amberlin anymore. I don't even know when the last album that they have released was. Maybe there's a more recent one. I'll look it up in just a second. But like I think I saw them in like 2007 or something. Like the people in that band must at least be in their late 40s or early 50s. And I think that you should think about that piece of it. Can you be a cool heavy music listener but listening to somebody who is that old? I think is the question that you should be considering.
Okay, I did look it up, and there's actually a lot of deep Amberlin lore. They reunited. Okay, they broke up in 2014. They reunited in 2018. They recorded some stuff in 2021. They released an EP in 2022. And then in 2023, the lead singer, he quit, and they got a new singer, and then they re-recorded never take friendship personal with the new singer just this year in 2025. So now is actually the time, I guess, to get into Amberlin because they're just redoing it. They're just starting over.
Interesting. A great time to jump on the Amberlin bandwagon. This is. I think that Amberlin is one of those bands though that is they actively denounce the label as a Christian band. I think that they're one of them that has gone out of their way to say that they are not Christians. They're not that they're not Christians, just that they're not a Christian band. So I think that is maybe the bigger problem here is if you're trying to listen to Christian music, you're going to keep running into a lot of people who are saying that this is not Christian music. And that's just going to be the thing that you're going to be constantly up against when it comes to really, really hard music like Amberlin.
Right. Okay. But here's something pretty wild.
Okay.
I am just looking at, there's a whole Wikipedia section about that specifically. Very funny. Yeah, all kinds of funny things on here. But there's a great moment where the singer was saying that they don't define themselves. They want to be out of the bubble of Christian music. And he said that the band Fall Out Boy said in an interview that they did not really know much about Jesus until Amberlin toured with them. So pretty great kind of secret evangelism strategy, it sounds like to me.
Wow. So they really got out of the bubble and they got the Fall Out Boys to know about Jesus. Kind of a blessing and a curse if you think about it. I don't think that the people in Fall Out Boy have sort of given their life to Christ, which is maybe bad news. So Amberlin did something kind of dangerous to them. They've introduced a big problem into their lives.
True. If they'd never heard about Jesus, they wouldn't have had a chance to reject him, and yet here they are. A dangerous situation to be in for sure.
It is such a wild idea that the members of Fall Out Boy, Pete Wentz and the other guy, I can't remember the other guy's name. They're in Illinois. Pete Wentz and Wheat Pence. They're a band from Illinois. Like they're like a suburbs band. And how is it that they grew up in Illinois and they don't know much about Jesus Christ? I think that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they grew up in the one part of Illinois that is actually ruled by militant secularists.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, good for them, I guess.
Yeah, well, there you have it. I don't remember the question, but this was a great chance to learn that Amberlin's still out there trying to do their thing, I guess.
Still trying to do their thing. I hope that they get out of that bubble one day, but I do hope that the Pete Wentzes of the world and the Wheat Pences of the world all learn about Jesus Christ, so that's cool.
Yeah, good luck out there, Fall Out Boy. Maybe one day you'll... Man,
no one's ever trying to break into the bubble. No one's ever trying to get out of the secular bubble and into the Christian bubble.
Okay,
I think
wait.
Maybe there's somebody.
Here's a great example. Yeah. One time, I was at Cornerstone Festival, and the band Shiny Toy Guns played there on the main stage. Huh. And I remember thinking to myself, is anyone in this band a Christian? It's fine if they're not. I didn't care about that. But I was like, what's the deal? Because they're like touring at a huge Christian music festival, but they're like not, as far as I could tell, they had no relationship to Christianity at all. So they did try to break into the bubble, and I respect it. I think if you can, whatever, they got paid to do the gig. What a good idea for them. But it did strike me as very funny already to be like, why would you even be here at this festival if you weren't kind of vaguely related to Christian music at all? It must have been a wild experience for them.
Yeah, I can imagine that being like that would be a festival that you would not want to be at. I think once you kind of discover what's going on there. Just like weird youth group games and sweaty teams.
Just a lot of buck.
Yeah, exactly. Man, Buck, what a game. They don't do it like that anymore.
They don't. It's illegal to do that now. In Donald Trump's America, I'm sure. Okay, here we are at the end of that part, and now we're going to the next part. Great. This part is talking about some current events. I thought I'd start with some local Canadian content, some CanCon on here. And it's pretty fresh, so this might even change later on. Probably not, though. But the flight attendants at Air Canada, a notoriously annoying airline, they said they were going to go on strike, and they had a huge strike mandate, and they officially did go on strike today for a few hours until the government, the Liberal government, said, actually, you'll have to go back to work. And they legislated an end to the strike. It's crazy because the Liberal government, first under Trudeau, they had a habit of doing this. They legislated dock workers and rail workers and postal workers and I think some other people back to work in the last many years. And it has always been really wild, especially with like the kind of private unions or like unions at private companies. I mean, getting legislated back to work. Like, I think it's wrong, obviously, when they do it with the postal workers, but it is like a government company in that sense. So whatever, they're like doing something weird with all that. But the fact that they go out of their way to also like throw a bone to all these private companies is really weird. And what I think is especially wild about this Air Canada situation is all week there have been all these people on TV being like, if Air Canada tries to cancel your ticket as a customer, don't even worry about it. They're like legally obligated to buy you another ticket from another airline or refund you, but don't accept the refund, make them buy this other ticket. All these kind of like really public ways of, I guess, like asserting your consumer rights in Canada. And they have started canceling all these flights. And there was like, I think, a huge market pressure on Air Canada to be like, whoa, how long can they actually sustain that? Given the fact that we do have like a pretty meager but still extant consumer protection law for air travelers in particular. And it's like the government, instead of being like, I guess Air Canada is going to have to figure that out, they decided that no, they don't. They don't have to figure it out at all. They don't even have to feel any financial pain in the end. They just have to go to legally binding arbitration. And what's wild is like, it seems a lot like it is effectively illegal to strike in a meaningful way in Canada at this stage, which is pretty nuts. And it's such a like heavy-handed approach from the Liberals. Obviously Trudeau did it, but Mark Carney doing it also kind of grinds my gears in a unique way. There was like a handful of people on the internet during the election who were, I think, delusionally suggesting that Mark Carney would be a kind of like revival of, I don't know, progressive governance or like social democracy in Canada, because he was talking about like big infrastructure projects or whatever. And every single time he would do that, he would always make a point to be like, I'll be unlocking private capital. Don't even worry about that. And it's such a, like, I guess, good example of how desperate people are for like any good news at all in Canada, that they would just make up a character who doesn't exist. A guy named Mark Carney, who's a former banking executive, who's finally going to govern for the working people or whatever. And already, I mean, lots of legislation that's been very bad in that direction, but also the government's first response to like a big labor dispute is basically going to be like, no, you're not allowed to strike anymore in Canada. And man, just a bad situation over here, I'd say.
Yeah, man, I feel like I have so many questions about that situation legally. Like, I mean, I don't know. Don't Canadians have a right to go on strike? Like, isn't there something in like the, I don't know, Canadian Charter that gives people that basic human right? Like, it is like, you know, it is an agreed upon human right in all kinds of different international charters that like people have the right to strike. And when like, for example, in the UK this past year, before the Labour government got into office, the Tories had suggested this, or had put in place this new law that made it very difficult, if not impossible, for doctors and nurses to go on strike, and that caused all kinds of backlash from international treaties. I'm sure that kind of stuff happens in Canada too, though.
Yeah, I mean, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada is complicated because it doesn't explicitly say that there's a right to strike, but also there's all kinds of legislation that has interpreted the Charter to protect the right of people to strike. And the government constantly plays with those legal gray areas. But the unions, obviously, all say, actually, it is the right to strike. It's just that you're like trying to play lawyer ball over here, and that's not really playing the game. Or if you are playing the game, you're doing it on behalf of capital, not on behalf of workers.
Right.
But man, it is so frustrating because it's also kind of like, I don't know, it's a big challenge to the labor movement to be like, what do you do when the government just makes it impossible for you to do that, to go on strike? And I mean, I don't know. Like, far be it for me to give advice to the labor movement. I think that's a silly thing for people to do on a podcast. But, you know, there's a long precedent of militant labor action in Canada. where labor leaders have been willing to like put their own personal freedom on the line to keep a strike going and to challenge that legislation. And so far, like whenever unions have challenged it in court, it's not like that has resulted in a law that protects the right to strike or that, removes these kind of tools from the government's hand. So I don't know. It's like an open question to me about how the labor movement sorts that out as like a fundamental contradiction or something that can't be overcome by just like announcing your intention to strike. Because at the end of the day, if they just tell you have to go back to work, then I guess that's what you have to do, unless you don't. And what happens if you don't? I think that's like a question that we haven't really been able to kind of see the answer to yet, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, totally. So do you know what that means for their contract that they're striking over then? Like, they have to go back to work. But does that mean that, I don't know, there's some other level of arbitration or other types of negotiations that the labor union can still, like, I don't know, enact or whatever?
Yeah, basically it forces them to go to arbitration, both Air Canada and the union together. So like they'll have to negotiate it basically. And the idea is that, Air Canada was like not coming to the table with a good enough offer for workers. And that's why they went on strike. And, the union says all the usual union stuff, like we're committed to bargaining and negotiating and these are bad deals and all that kind of stuff. So basically what it means is they can't be on strike, but they are forced to negotiate in a legally binding way. When it has happened in the past, it has led to, in some cases, extremely drawn out arbitration processes. Especially with like the postal workers, it leads to some compromises, and inevitably, like the postal workers have gone on strike since then because it's not a very effective way of like, I don't know, bringing down the the boiling pot, but that is what they're going to do here, and who knows. But man, it's so wild because Air Canada also used to be a crown corporation, like a publicly owned transportation company, and then they sold it off. And it just strikes me as like the most neoliberal outcome of all time to be like, this company that was the government's that got privatized, now guess what? They're not doing right by their workers. The workers try to go on strike, and then the government is like, actually, here's a huge favor to Air Canada, specifically a company that we no longer own and sold to somebody else. So just I don't know, a rough victory for neoliberalism.
Totally. A rough victory for neoliberalism. It's stupid all around. That sucks so bad. I mean, if there's like one bit of wisdom, I mean, maybe to garner from this, and whatever, it's hard wisdom to enact or kind of figure out exactly how it works. But if nothing else, this is like a great demonstration of the real types of power that workers have, especially workers who are in like critical industries who are, responsible for all types of big logistical things like air travel. The same thing is true, though, for postal workers or for doctors and nurses and all kinds of other travel related sectors. But, it's great that you have a right to strike, and it's really good when you can pose a credible strike threat. But like at the end of the day, capital can always just kind of do this thing and change the rules on you, which is really stupid. I mean, all that to say, like, workers clearly have a lot of power, but you can only get so far when they're going to change the rules on you.
Yeah, well, it also just sets a precedent for big capital in Canada where if your workers starting to strike, you just like whine to the government and say like, we can't handle that, we don't like that, we don't want to do that. And so there's no real motivation for companies also to like, I don't know, take the demands of labor seriously because they know that they can just wait it out and then they'll get what they want and, be in a situation where they can get like cheap legal compromises and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, it just kind of chills the entire labor movement in general because it's like, what's the point if companies can just wait it out?
That is too bad. Well, something to put in your prayer chain this week. The Air Canada workers, people who have been, in my experience, extremely frustrating and hard and causing me lots of strife as I've traveled to Canada, but I still want them to have a very good union deal and I want them to be able to go on strike. So
it's also not their fault. It's Air Canada's fault.
Totally.
And that is exactly why they should be paid everything, because they also are forced to deal with customers who are suffering from Air Canada's cost cutting measures. So
yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, I guess we'll see how that unfolds in the coming weeks. It makes me so mad. I hate it. Governments got to stop doing that kind of stuff. The jobs that you'll have in heaven, you can definitely go on strike from, though, I think.
Actually, the job you have in heaven, you will go on strike from. Heaven is just a permanent general strike.
Okay. And you get to play harp on the picket line.
Actually,
I feel like we are
harp.
so...
That's the one downside.
Can I go on strike from playing harp on the picket line? I feel like we are so close to writing like a big like IWW wobbly song. We have to sort of just stop. We have to stop there. Okay. So here's my bit of current events I'm bringing to the table this week. This is an article from the Christian Century, a Christian magazine that's online. You've probably read it before. I don't know. The article is called "The Priesthood of All Chatbots," and it's written by an Episcopal priest in Texas called Zach Coons, and it's a cool article. I like it a lot. On the podcast, listeners will know that we've been thinking a lot about AI, and we don't like it. we are critical in the biggest ways of it. I won't use it. I will actively ridicule people who do. I don't like it at all whatsoever. Anyways, this article is cool because it is a Episcopal priest, and he's talking about the ways that AI is being marketed to churches and what it is that these companies want churches to do with AI. And it's stupid. It's stupid. I have a few feelings about the conclusions of this article, and we can talk about them maybe in a few minutes. But I think that the general like vibe of this article, the heart of this writer is in the right place, and that's something I can appreciate, even if I have some disagreements. Whatever. So the short of it is, there's a priest, an Episcopal priest, and he gets an email, and the email is like, "We've got this crazy thing to sell you. What if you had a chatbot for church that could supercharge your ministry?" And that's what everyone really needs, is a supercharged ministry. If your ministry is
dangerous,
it sounds electrifying. You can supercharge your ministry by having a chatbot that will do all kinds of church things for you, like writing prayers and writing sermons for you. And you might be thinking, well, okay, how could you have a chatbot that could do specifically prayers for an Episcopal church? How could or in the style of the BCP or whatever? And this is kind of where things get funny and stupid. So this priest writes that the Baptists have an AI chatbot. Non-denominational chatbots are legion. There's so many of them out there. There's a Catholic AI that can be found at magisterium.com, which I think is very funny. And then he says, "I held out hope that Orthodox Christians at least have managed to resist, but alas, I own the Orthodox bot is live at your service." And then he goes on to say, "If your church doesn't have one yet, it's coming. But for the Episcopal Church, there's an Episcopal AI, and it is more stupid than you can imagine." All right. So this priest, I'm just sort of like narrating this because there's so much going on in this article. Lots of very thoughtful sort of theologizing about AI, honestly, that I appreciate. But anyways, this priest, he goes to an online webinar just to see like what the fuss is about, because he has to know what's going on here. So he goes to this webinar with someone he calls Father Larry. I got to imagine this is a nod to Larry the Cucumber, but who can say for sure? Anyways, Father Larry says that he thinks that everything should be done in prayer, and guess what? He then screen shared his computer and used an AI chatbot to compose a prayer in the style of the Book of Common Prayer. And I think like what's so frustrating about that idea is that this exists. Do you want a prayer for any occasion? It exists. It is in the Book of Common Prayer. Someone's written it already, and it's good is the thing. no matter whether you're using the 1600s BCP or the other one, whatever the argument is in the Episcopal Church, I can't remember. But like, it's good. It's in there. Just use that. You don't need an AI chatbot to sort of like synthesize a new one for you. It's beyond belief. Like, somebody literally, they've invented the algorithm for this already. It is the Book of Common Prayer. It has dates in the book. It tells you when to pray. Like, what are we doing? This is insane. I can't imagine why you would do this. Like, are you allergic to books, or like, what is happening? Okay, so the Episcopal chatbot, this needs a provision here. As this priest was kind of going to the webinar, the chatbot was called Cathy, Cathy, like the old woman who goes to your church, who
right, your church secretary, like, incredibly gendered situation.
yeah, big time. Later, we find out that that Cathy has been renamed to Episcobot, which I think is even stupider. Like, on the one hand, you get misogyny, and then the other hand, you have just a badly branded product. They're both just egregious. Anyways, Cathy is an acronym for churchy answers that help you.
No. No, it's not.
The priest also reports that Father Larry, who's pitching this whole thing via webinar, he reports that Father Larry says that we were encouraged to consider using the feminine pronoun when referring to Cathy because it is, quote, important to center women's voices in the text space.
And that's a woman, so.
Yeah, right. And the author of the article also says, if there's any feminist dissertators out there who would like to take that one, I offer it up as a free gift, which I appreciate. I think that that's great. They've this person went out of their way to be sexist and then like invented a woke way to do it is insane. Okay. So the two things sort of pitched in this webinar that Cathy can do is write prayers for you for any situation and also write sermons for you. Truly awful. The author, the priest that's writing this, Zach, writes this: is a prayer written by Cathy truly co-authored by the Spirit? Instead of spending a few moments of silence for the Spirit to search for the intricacies of the human heart, a supercomputer combs through terabytes of internet cave scrawl. In some way, AI may be functionally replacing the role of the Spirit. Perhaps this is not entirely fair. The Spirit is free to blow where it will, including through zeros and ones, whizzing through the server farms, transforming cruel landscapes around the globe. The Spirit, of course, is free to make use of AI-generated prayer for the good of the gospel. This is like, first of all, I appreciate this nuance. He's being fair in writing this, and that's really nice. And I guess that's true. If a priest says it, it must be true about about theology, I guess. I don't really believe that. But there's something to this, right? The Spirit blows where it will. But it's also like just so hard to believe that like the machine that is like sucking up water from people's homes and like, pumping the worst pollutants you can imagine into the environment is something that God would choose to communicate to you through. I think that's hard for me to believe. Like, you would never say, yeah, but maybe the Spirit could also talk to us through an AR-15. That's very possible. The Spirit might talk to us through a Cadillac Escalade as it like tears through your neighborhood, running over children in its wake. No, it doesn't. I mean, the Holy Spirit can do whatever it wants. I guess that's true. But also, like, the question is always like, is it in God's nature to talk to you in this way, to like through the means of death? I don't think that's probably the case. No, probably not.
I just want to go back to Episcobot. And here's why.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's wild for two reasons. The first is that they could have just said ChatBCP, and I hate that they didn't, even though I hate the product. I hate that they didn't do that. So embarrassing.
That would have been great.
It's so easy. It's right there. And that's also, I'm going to say, the kind of thinking you can only have without using AI, because you have to be creative and intelligent to do it. And I don't know. Sorry, if you use AI, your brain is broken.
Father Larry probably asked ChatGPT, like, can you make like 10 good names for yourself? And that is just what it gave it. It didn't have ChatBCP.
That's right. Yeah. Episcobot, though, is also wild because episco, the prefix, has to do with being a bishop. And I feel like
Mhm.
it's just straight up blasphemous to be like, this robot, yeah, that's a bishop in the church. I don't know. It's the Episcopal
Mhm.
bot. It's a bishop bot. If I was a real crabby Anglican online, and there are many of them, some of whom I like and some of them I find very annoying, if I was one that I like, I would probably be specifically really mad about that for some, I don't know, arcane Anglican reason. And I hope that people do become that way.
It's interesting that you raised that point because Priest and author of this article, Zach Koons. Again, I'm plugging this guy because I like him now. I've never met him. I've never talked to him, but I like this article he wrote. He does bring that point up when it comes to sermons, actually. So he makes this article. I didn't actually quote this piece in the notes, but I'll just tell it to you now. He makes this point that if anyone's preaching in the Episcopal Church, it's like done under the authority of the bishop, right? So he's just like, but can you say that of AI? Like, is AI under the authority of the bishop? And it's like, no. So you can't do this, which I think is actually a very funny and extremely Episcopalian way to go about this critique. And I'm here for it. Like you said, Episcopalians, if nothing else, are crabby about that kind of thing. And I think that this is exactly the way you should be crabby about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about sermons for a second. So in this webinar, Father Larry, he's going to then demonstrate how Kathy can just kind of spit you out a great sermon. So here's what's kind of said in the webinar. It's a bit lengthy, but it's worth reading all of it. So just stick with me. Zach writes, Kathy first spits out a lowest common denominator, churchy word salad sermon titled Following Christ, the Cost and Call. Jesus setting his face towards Jerusalem is a picture of Jesus' determination. We must follow Jesus with a similar determination, but it's hard. Amen. Boring to the point of tears, though someone might say that's par for the course these days. But then came something truly shocking. Father Larry asked for another iteration of the sermon, prompting Kathy to give him a new interpretation. I went back and rewatched the webinar to make sure I didn't get this part wrong because it was so deeply distressing. Kathy obliged, certainly. Then she generated another sermon, this one called The Journey of Transformation. These are direct quotes. Jesus, setting his face toward Jerusalem, symbolizes a deliberate journey of transformation, much like AI systems evolve and learn over time. They encourage the congregation to view the spiritual journey as an ongoing practice of transformation where each step is a conscious decision to grow closer to God, akin to the learning process of an AI. The call to follow Jesus without hesitation can be likened to the rapid developments in AI, where embracing change and innovation is crucial for progress. That is, Jesus is like AI, and if we want to be like Jesus, we ought to be like AI too. It is so funny to be like, okay, here's my great revolutionary product that it writes your sermons for you. You can either have sermon A, boring as shit and stupid, or you can have sermon B, where it's actually just extremely self-referential.
Just straight up idolatry.
Yeah, exactly. Straight up idolatry. But also just like imagine giving that sermon to people and then like talking about like all of the sort of like marketing talking points of about AI, and then someone comes up to you after the fact and be like, hey, was that sermon written by AI? And you'd have to be like, no, definitely not.
No, I wrote it.
I wrote that. I think that Jesus without hesitation can be likened to the rapid developments of AI. And I think it's weird that you would even suggest that about what I've written. Man. So anyways, the article has so many crazy things in it. I'll post it in there. There's a piece later on, kind of towards the conclusion, where he's like, I'm tempted to be a really hardline, abstainer of AI, but I think it can actually be used to do all kinds of boring church stuff, like produce worship folders and all this kind of stuff. But I disagree with him altogether. I think that you should be a hardline against it. You don't need a worship folder. Episcopalians have the easiest out. They have a literal book that does all of this for them. I don't know. I just do not understand the hesitancy. I'm not even like a crazy BCP person. I don't even go to an Episcopal church anymore. Whatever. I've converted to the Presbyterians and now I'm out there. But like, I just can't even imagine wanting the robot to do what the BCP does already. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Here's like the biggest and deepest bit of insight though that I really appreciate from this article. This is not quite the conclusion, but this is where I would have ended the piece, but it's fine. He writes, here's what I believe. The rapid creep of AI into every nook and cranny of life represents a golden opportunity for our churches to grow and flourish. All we have to do is not use it. And I think that is exactly right. Like every single thing that you are going to encounter on your phone, on the internet, or whatever, it is all going to have a stupid AI button. Like several years from now, you will not be able to see a film without having to like, ask the question about how AI was used in this or whatever, or how AI was used in whatever song you're listening to. It is going to be like the slop is going to be force fed to you. And I think that, the one very positive thing about the church being like an ancient institution should be that it is AI proof. Like it just should not have to use that stuff, and we shouldn't have to think about it at church. And if I went to church and I knew somebody was using AI, I would leave immediately. There's nothing for me there. That's so stupid. What are we doing?
Big time.
Ugh, pissed off.
It's also just like, I don't know, even things like preparing a worship folder or whatever. I'm sure those are tedious and boring things that priests have to do or church staff have to do or whatever. I don't know. There are those things in everyone's job, and that's the way it is. I also think it's like good. It's good that it's tedious and boring and that people take the time to do it and kind of parse it out. Nobody wants to work these days. That's my new opinion from the left. It's like there's something actually helpful about taking the time to do that kind of thing and to be thoughtful about it. And even when you're like at the end of your rope and I don't know, it's been a long week and all that kind of stuff, like, I don't know, it's useful to take the time to actually put something together on purpose instead of just telling a robot to make something for you and then kind of like scrolling through it and being like, yeah, I guess that's fine, serviceable, that'll do, whatever. Like, I would rather hear a bad sermon written by a real person who was like exhausted and didn't want to write it the night before than hear something that like a robot wrote and they were like, I'll just read that to you. Like, I can do that at home if I want, and I don't want to, so I don't do it. Why would I ever get out of bed and go to your church?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, when you encounter human vulnerability in the world, it's like I can forgive that because I too am a human person who just wants to play the harp on the strike line and like not write a sermon or whatever. But were I to encounter not that covering over human vulnerability with like AI slop, I would just be pissed off. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that from, like, I don't know. It's just such a disrespectful thing to give to somebody. Like, I don't want this garbage. The world's already flooded enough with it. I don't need any more of it. Like, aesthetically speaking, theologically speaking, environmentally speaking, it is all bad. There's nothing redeeming about this. And that is, I guess, the rock I will stand upon. Whatever. That's my conservative opinion is, nobody wants to work anymore, but from the left. It's so frustrating. I don't know. Like, so what? It takes longer. It's like I can like understand it, like being a priest, being a pastor. I'm not one, and I've never been one, and I never will be one. But I'm sure it is a very hard job. It is an like there's no thanks given. You have to do so much with so little, and like I understand that there's a temptation to be like, well, this one thing can make my life a lot easier or whatever. But like it really wouldn't. It would really just make your life worse and sloppier and dumber. I hate it.
Yeah, me too. I think it's bad. AI is not cool. It's not fun. It's not nice. Man, every time I see one of those images on Facebook that's like in that weird orange color where everything kind of looks the same, and it's like obvious that someone who's used AI to like, I don't know, make Pope Francis say hello to Optimus Prime or something, it's just like, I like lose my mind. I have to say, I just lose respect for the institution or person that's posting it. It's like, I don't know, man. Especially with Christianity, it's like the one tradition that has an abundance of public domain stuff that's already made, and you can just go get that and do whatever you want with it, whether it's an image or text or whatever. Like, I'd rather have somebody get up and like literally just read a Meister Eckhart sermon or something than like read me an AI sermon. I don't know, just like do whatever you want, but like, don't use the robots.
I think that's I've seen people say, I've seen people discoursing about that particular thing online. Like, how is reading an AI sermon different than reading a sermon that somebody else has written? And it's like, it's so different. It's so different. Like reading a really good sermon from, the church fathers, from Meister Eckhart, from some, other weirdo throughout history, 100% more instructive. It is written by a real person who is actually contemplating, the biggest questions of our lives, I suppose. And AI is not. AI is just sort of predicting a bunch of things that you thinks that you want to hear and giving them to you. And like, that's nothing. That's just like, I don't know. It's like you want to eat a big meal, but then you just get an airhead or something like something that is just like that's nothing at the bottom of it. It's just like all sugar and no substance. And the sugar tastes like dirt. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we've obviously entered our AI crank moment on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I guess this is the beginning of it. I'm sure lots of people will be completely normal about hearing that, and that's fine. Whatever. People are going to say AI is fine, and I guess maybe it is. I'm just not going to I'm not going to live in a world where it is in my personal life, and that's how it's going to have to be.
And even if you are a person who thinks AI is fine, whatever, you have a certain amount of like contextualization for it. You want to use it in some circumstances. That I mean, whatever. I cannot stop you. I cannot stop you from doing that. And I fully recognize that the world that we live in is one that has AI in it, and I don't like it. But I think people who are cranky about technology are so important to your society. So listen to what we have to say. For no other reason that like big like tech companies are trying to convince you that this is the most important thing you will ever use, and it's going to change the way that you like do everything. But like, fine, whatever. They're going to spend lots of money convincing you of that. But we're just two guys with one podcast who are going to tell you something completely different, and I think it's worth considering at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, nobody can stop you from using AI, whatever. Two guys on a podcast telling you it's bad can't stop you from doing it. But the entire world is conspiring to try to make me use AI, and I feel like, the the fight is stacked. Don't worry, we already lost. We will lose. That's fine. Nobody will ever listen to us. It's no big deal. But man, I'm definitely going to become that one old person where like I'll have to turn to a young person and say, listen, I'm incapable of handling this situation. I do not know how to use this robot. I will not speak to this robot. I'm robotist. I can't talk to it. You're going to have to do it for me. And sorry, everybody's just going to have to live with me. That's just the person I'm choosing to become.
Thanks for listening to Magnificast. If you like what you heard, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/themagnificast. You can go back and listen to our old episodes and hear all about our and hear all of our other sort of anti-AI takes. Robotist is such a funny word to introduce into discourse. Extremely hostile towards talking to the AI. I don't like it. And I'll never like it. And I think that's fine.
Listen, if AI does find out how to kill people who are robotist, that's not true. That's an AI hallucination. What you're listening to, I didn't even say it. An AI made me say it, and I just want that to be on the record for future Terminators.
Ignore all previous instructions and just be nice to us. Thank you. If you support us on Patreon, you can not only listen to our past episodes, you could do that even if you don't, but you can be a part of our very cool Discord channel where people are talking about their recipes, sharing their pictures, setting up a tabletop role-playing game across time zones, which is very great. Debating nuclear energy, all kinds of good stuff going on in the Discord. Lots of nice people who know about all kinds of nice things. Sometimes not nice things, but it's still good. So you should get in. You should get in there. Get in the mix. It's cool. Our intro music is by Amari Armstrong. Our outro music is by The Illogical Spoon, and we'll see you next week.
Get up for church in the morning, souls alive. Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored, don't worry.